code ASX LKE. Lake Resources have been through quite a tumultuous time. A lot of you out there have been saying to me, please reach out to Lake Resources and get them on your channel. Well, here he is. We're not going to shy away from any of the questions. I've reached out to some of you. I've asked you what you want to hear. So David is here. He's willing to open up, tell us what's going on, and make sure that we all understand what the future holds for Lake Resources. David, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me on Making Money Matter today.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Look, David, recently, I just want to crack straight in. I don't want to go, who are Lake Resources and what's the project? It's Argentina, it's Kachi, it's lithium. But you've recently said this is Lake 2.0, like the second iteration of Lake. Investor sentiment is pretty low out there at the moment. I want you to explain, you joined Lake in September of last year. So you're just coming up to a year in the job. My God, what a year it's been. But I want you to let us know what your vision is for this Lake 2.0.
Yeah, no, listen, Kerry, it's been quite a challenge, and I guess now 11 months coming on board, and obviously some of what's happened is not what I was certainly anticipating when I came on board. But and I've said before, by building the team, and I'm going to really emphasize the technical team that I've brought together and really evaluating this project. And I'll say it again, this is not a mining project. This is more like an oil and gas project. This is a specialty chemical project, right? So as I look back at the last 11 months, what I'm proud of is the fact that we've built together a very, very strong group of individuals that's been able to really evaluate this project, because it was going on the wrong path, right? What we've done is we've steered it back into the right path.
Okay, so sorry, David, I'm going to interrupt you. When you say it was going down the wrong path, what do you mean by that?
Well, the big thing was changing the whole execution plan, right? Originally, Lake was looking at producing this one-off 50,000 ton plant, right? When I got into it, I saw that there was a lot of, from complexity and a lot of risk associated with building such a one-off large plant. So that's why we changed the execution model to break it into two phases, then ultimately break the phases into two trains, right? So what we've done is reduce the risk significantly. So the way to look at it is, and I think I've said this before, I've come up with an execution plan, which is all about learning to walk before we run.
Okay.
We've got to understand this is the first time someone's going to generate or produce lithium using DLE, using ion exchange in remote Argentina. And what we brought to it is, I think I said in my investor update, it's all about credible, real, but really reducing the risk, right? So a lot of work has gone in to come up with this plan. And I know it's created a lot of disappointment, because obviously first lithium is now the back end of 2027. But even if it was a 50,000 ton plant, it's going to be further away than 2027. So we've actually, I guess, unleashed bringing some of the value ahead. So that really was the big issue. The challenge with that is that delay in first lithium, but obviously the big increase in the capital cost, right?
Yeah.
And people ask me the question, well, what was happening before? Why was that? And I want to emphasize is that this is a specialty chemical project. 75 to 80% of our capex is building a process plant, not a mining project, right? So that's why we're seeing the increase in the cost and also the extension of the time. But one of the things I would say is for investors is we've got a very, very strong technical team of individuals together that really have gone through this project in a lot of detail. We've reset the timelines. We've got a number of milestones that's going to come up between now and the DFS. Obviously, we'll put that news out as it happens. But now we have a structure and we have a plan.
I think it's important because you just mentioned before that 75 to 80% of the cost, because there was a cost blowout, which disappointed the market, along with that production delay. But going back to the sort of the cost blowout, one of the things you said, and I wonder whether the market has picked up on this, is that you are really not, you're not a mining company, you should be called Lake Chemicals, because you're building a chemical production facility. So you're taking, if I get this right, you're going to extract the brine, take the lithium, re-inject the water back, or the brine back into other drill holes, and then take that lithium into this chemical production facility to make a high value, high purity product, which can go direct to the off takers, if you like.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
So is that a cost blowout because it wasn't that sort of chemical side wasn't taken into consideration before you came along, and you understand it more on the chemical production side? I just want to understand why now, if you like.
Yeah, I mean the reason for the cost blowout is predominantly driven from, everybody compares to where we were at the PFS stage, and that goes back to early 2020. I mean, since 2020 to now, a lot of things have happened. And a lot of people will attribute some of the increase in costs as a result of supply chain resulted through COVID. But most of our cost blowout is really about the definition of what this process plant looks like. And with that, it comes with associated costs, right? And one of the things that we haven't done is completed that definition. So that's why when we went with the operational update, I put out a window of 1.1 to 1.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're also doing, as well as definition, we're also looking at optimization. Right. So as we develop and we continue to develop the work that we're doing until DFS, we'll obviously narrow down on that window to where, to give a plus or minus 15% capex estimate. But most of it has really been driven by the defining this project.
And defining all the things around it. But David, there's a couple of things around that sort of cost blowout. First of all, over $1 billion, that's a large capex. How the heck are you going to fund something like that?
No, I mean, so again, when we went with operational update, I wouldn't have gone to that without speaking with both our off-takers and the people that were looking to finance that. So that's the ECAs and the banks that are supporting it. So we went through this whole execution plan and went through in detail with them before we went public with the market, because they're under NDA, and all of them got it right. So, and one of the positive, I mean, the off-takers disappointed on the timeline, but for the first time they saw something that was real incredible. For the banks and the ECAs, the attractiveness is that we are, by building it in 4 trains, we're significantly reducing the risk. And if you're someone that's providing finance, you're all about protecting the downside, right? So sure. When the bank saw this is attractive to them, and that's why where there hasn't been anything negative around our ability to finance it. So the ECAs are still behind us, the bank support, the ECAs are still there, and our off-takers are still with us.
Okay, so when we're looking at this and you talk about the de-risking side of things, is that by doing smaller modules? Explain to us about the de-risking of this project, because, okay, I get it now. It can be funded. Clearly, there's a lot of demand out there for your product once it comes on. But talk to us about how you came up with this different approach to the de-risking of the project.
Yeah, so coming from oil and gas, there's a number of parts of oil and gas where we use this philosophy, right? And I guess the most common one that people in Australia could relate to is the LNG business, right? So if you go to the LNG business, LNG is produced in trains, right? And so instead of having one large, let's say 20 million ton per annum plant for LNG, you'll see plants which are anywhere from 2.5 to over 5 million tons per annum type size of trains. So that's the philosophy that we took into this. And the benefit of that is, 1, you get earlier production, 2, you minimize the risk, but also 3, in operation is we're going to be operating 4 trains. That gives us so much more flexibility around operations and maintenance, i.e. if something goes wrong in a one-off 50,000 ton plant, we're shut down. On this basis, we can operate three of the trains and have one shut down for operations and maintenance. So there's also upside in the actual operation of the facility.
Talk to me like a 5-year-old when you say trains, because I know that this project is pretty remote in Argentina. Are you talking physical trains that have to take it from?
No, no, no. I'm talking. It's a termination that we use. So
That's why I wanted you to talk to me like a 5-year-old.
so the 5-year-old, just assume it's four plants. Four
Okay.
plants, 12,500 tons each.
Okay. And so those plants, when is construction, when are you looking at doing that?
We'll look at, so if you look at our time frame or plan, and if you just walk through the timeline, the plan is to complete DFS end of the year, submit our environmental impact assessment sometime in Q1 of 2024. We're predicting that's a 12-month long process. So that allows us to move into a final investment decision in early 2025, which means early to mid 2025 we'll be, putting shovels in the ground and drilling wells. So really early 2025 is when we're looking at starting to construct.
You mentioned the DFS. Now that DFS, and again, I go back to the fact that you joined in September last year. The DFS was due out in June, now due out in December. David, how confident are you that is actually going to hit the mark? Because I think that
I gave that news back in the 19th of June. Here we are on the 8th, 9th of August, depends on which part of the world you're in. And today we're still on track. And we'll probably come out with some more news flow to the market in the next coming weeks, highlighting the reasons why we are on track. But certainly today, we are delivering our DFS at the end of the year.
And you've also said that DFS will be very robust and almost like a bankable.
Correct. And the reason why I drive that is, I've seen in the industry, and again, I'm new to this industry, but what I saw with some other DFSs is it seems to be a large time from publishing the DFS and actually getting to a point of financing your project.
Yeah.
The problem with that is a DFS for me, and I'm going to use the analogy of what we use oil and gas through doing feed work, etc., is DFSs can become stale within 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
So a DFS needs to be as bankable as much as it can. I mean, our DFS will trigger the due diligence that's going to be done with both our ECAs, our banks, and our off-takers. So it has to be as far developed as it possibly can. So that's why we refer to it as being bankable. Now, I've seen other DFSs that I question whether you can actually finance against them, but I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to focus on what our DFS is going to look like.
Few people have reached out to me as well, David. They're very keen to hear your views on things. But one of the comments has always been about infrastructure, power, water in this remote part of Argentina. How do you address that?
Yeah, so I haven't criticized many people on it, but if I was to criticize resources coming in, is the lack of progress on the power side of this project. Right, there was too much assumptions on naivety of how you get power to this project. And again, I come from a background of building capital projects in remote areas. And number one item on your to-do list is I got to find power, right?
Absolutely.
And I think the company was extremely naive around that whole subject. So we've gone to work on that. First is identifying how much power you need, because that makes a big difference. So I think we're fairly well progressed on that. And since the operational update, I was in Argentina for a week, about 3 weeks ago, and we had a number of discussions with a number of power transmission companies.
Okay.
So we're now looking at 4 or 5 potential solutions that allow us to get power to our facility. Now, one of the other drivers that helps with building in smaller plants is then our demand for power isn't at the peak from day one, right? So that allows us to come up with a longer plan how eventually we get to the maximum power that we need to support the 4 plants. So there's some of that logic is into the let's build this in the 4 plants.
But it is doable, and you are underway with discussions about how you get power to this particular site.
Correct. Since I came in, it was not on the priority in lake resources. I can tell you, if it's not my number one priority, it's my number two.
On that very subject, when we talk about priorities, let's talk about your top three priorities, as we said, because as I said to you right at the start, there's a lot of people out there that I'm speaking to here in Australia, and also, you've got a large retail base here in Australia. There's a lot of disappointment down here, David. They'd like to see you out here. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what is David Dickson's top three priorities, not only just for lake resources, or should we call it lake chemicals, but also, I guess, to restore faith in the fact that you're the right man for the job, and this is going to become a project that will get into production?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing priority is we gotta prove to our shareholder base that we can deliver on what we said we're going to do, right?
Yep.
I use the term Lake Resources 2.0, and that's the term that I use in the team that I brought together. Because what I said after the operational update is this is no more about Lake Resources history. This is about Lake Resources moving forward.
Okay.
This management team now owns this, right? So let's not waste time talking about the past. We just got to talk about the future. So now it's up to this management team to deliver on interim pieces of news to the market that gives our shareholders confidence that we're going to deliver this project on time. Now, my time up until recently has been really dedicated to building a strong team that can deliver this large capital project. And I keep on going back to this large specialty chemical project.
Yeah.
Different skill sets from mining, right? So that's been my priorities have now shifted to how do I strategically execute this project? So that's spending more time with my off-takers, spending more time with the bankers, spending more time with the ECAs, spending more time in Argentina, spending more time with a number of governments looking at strategically what is the best way to execute this project, because this project is going to have a high importance in the actual lithium industry in the years to come. I mean, we are looking at producing at some point 50,000 tons. That is a significant volume of lithium carbonate battery grade that has to come into the sector. So there's going to be a lot of importance on this project. So my priorities now is focus on more the strategic elements of making sure we deliver this project on time and on budget.
When we talk Argentina as well, there's an election coming up. I'm talking to you in August. There's an election coming up in, I think, October. Does that
October the 22nd, I think it is, yes.
Okay. 2 months after the Matildas win at their FIFA World Cup, that's a whole other thing. Is that going to have any sort of impact if there's a change in government?
So, I've spent a lot of time in Argentina talking to, a number of people, everything from ambassadors from a number of countries, actually Secretary of Energy in Argentina, Secretary of Mining. And, the feedback that I'm picking up and what I saw from a few weeks ago is, it's difficult to predict who's going to be in power post this election.
Yeah.
What I did pick up, though, is whoever wins this election, the lithium sector is really high up in their priorities. This is, and I've said it before, this is Argentina's moment to generate a huge amount of value for the country, right? So the good thing is, from a federal basis, the support from both parties for the lithium space. What's more important, though, is from a provincial government status, and in Argentina, the provincial governments carry a lot of weight and a lot of power. Indications would say that the existing governor will stay in seat. Now, that's all subject to election. That governor is very supportive of the lithium space. He's very supportive of the Lake Resources project. And one of the drivers why he's so supportive is DLE is a game changer in regards to the environmental impact. So a lot of work we're doing is on the CSR side. We're working a lot, we're educating the government. We've got government officials coming to our site. We're educating them on reinjection. Reinjection has never been done before. So we've built a really good relationship with the government, and they're going to be very much that local government is going to be influential on things like approving our, our environmental impact assessment, which is critical for this project. So from a government perspective, I think it's their moment. Both the two large parties are very supportive of the industry, and then provincially, the existing governor and the team around him are very supportive of the lithium space on the basis it's done in a very responsible way, right? So the only question I get asked is, well, what's going to happen to things like inflation, exchange rates?
Yeah,
Because, I can try and fix a lot of things, but my crystal ball is just not that clear on that.
Yeah, and inflation's a little bit out of control, but I think, does that impact you guys very much? Because I think inflation in Argentina is like insane.
Yeah, it's insane. So I get asked that question a lot. The way to look at it for Lake Resources is today we spend very, very little money in Argentina, right? We've got some drilling activities ongoing. We've also got a lot of people, but our costs in Argentina are not significant. So we don't actually have any impact with regards to, the impact on inflation to us is very minimal. The time to think about how will inflation impact is when we actually start to spend some serious dollars in Argentina. And for us, that's 2025 and beyond. However, if you look at our execution plan, we're going to be building a lot of this project in modules in places like the US, the UK, Korea, other parts of the world, and then bringing it into the country. So a lot of our expenditure will actually be outside of Argentina.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. All right. We're running out of time, David. I do appreciate you being forthright, but there are investors that will be watching this that will say, I need to be more comfortable. I need to get back in love with Lake. Give us 3 reasons why you think, now that you're really there, taking hold, and as you said, this is Lake 2.0, you're re-steering the ship. It's like taking an aircraft carrier and takes a little while to turn it. What are the 3 things that you think you would say to investors right now about the direction that the company is heading in and how you're going to recreate that confidence in the company?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we've had to go through that hard part, right? So we've had to take the tough decisions and the tough actions to really get this project in a more credible and realistic position. Not easy, but we had to do it because, at the end of the day, we got to make sure we put together a very comprehensive, well-structured plan on how we're going to execute this project on time and on budget. The other thing I want to tell shareholders is we have an extremely strong group of people. And people ask me, are directors buying shares, are management buying shares? And that's always a very difficult question for me to answer, right? Because there's a number of reasons for that. But here's one thing I would say to shareholders. When I built this team, I brought in a group of strong individuals from other companies. They left other good paying jobs, careers to join Lake Resources. We've had to go through this period of bad news. The team within Lake is extremely motivated and excited. No one's leaving the company to say, hey, this is not what I signed up for.
Right.
And I think it's an important message for shareholders is you've got behind them a strong team that's really, really dedicated to delivering this project and actually changing the industry. And that's important. And that's where a lot of our team are extremely motivated. And that's how a lot of our team are extremely motivated today.
All right, David, are you going to come out to Australia? I'm talking to you from Australia. Are you going to come out and run the gauntlet and chat to shareholders out here sometime in the future?
Absolutely. I'll be out in the coming months. I will be. I think I'm speaking at IMART, which is obviously not until early November. But I'll be out again in within the next couple of months. Yes.
David Dickson, CEO of Lake Resources. It's been a wild ride. Let's get you back on in the coming months to give another update. But today was fascinating and we really appreciate it. Stay focused, turn that ship, and we look forward to some more good news as we head into that DFS coming up in December. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you.